那各位同学，大家还有各位同学，还有一些是在线的老师们，大家好。我们这边是 SIUK 台湾办公室，那也是 UCL 在台湾的代表办公室。那今天非常非常的开心，我们邀请到UCL 的教育学院教授们来跟我们分享他们的课程，然后让大家可以在这短短的大师课体验当中跟教授做第一线的经验分享。那在我们开始之前，我想要介绍一下今天即将为我们主讲的教授们。第一个就是 Professor John O Regan, that he is a critical applied linguistic professor and also the international vice dean. 首先我想要跟大家介绍的是Professor John 教授，他是我们批判性应用语言学还有国际副院长。John, can you say hello to everyone?
Hello, nice to be here with you.
那等一下Professor John 会跟我们分享就是关于 UCL 的教育学院的部分，那这部分会非常的简短，接下来会到我们今天的重头戏，也就是我们今天的大师课是关于跨文化沟通，那将有2位教授来主讲，一个是Professor Zhu Hua, who is the Professor of Language Learning and Intercultural Communication. Professor Zhu Hua, can you say hello to everyone?Hello，
大家好，下午好。我在伦敦这里是早晨，很高兴见到大家。
And another professor that also going to join the lecture part is Associate Professor Fotini Diamantidaki, the Professor of Language Education and Learning. Can you say hello to everyone as well?
Hey, hello everyone from me too. I'm currently in Switzerland, Geneva, so good morning from me.Really happy to be here.
So thank you all for supporting the event today. 那因为我们时间有限，所以我就不耽误太多的时间。接下来我就把时间交给 IOE 的这些重量级教授们，希望大家今天都收获满满咯。So Professor John O Regan, that you may start right now.
Okay, thank you very much, Angela.Can you see that okay? Yep, that's fine. Okay, good. Well, good morning to you from London. It's great to be here. I'd like to thank SIUK for organizing this. I'd like to thank Angela too for being the lead in making this event happen. And I'm delighted to be here to say something about UCL, University College London,and the Institute of Education, which is where myself and my colleagues, Zhu Hua and Fotini Diamantidaki, are located. So, University College London is a very prestigious university. It's one of the older universities in the UK. We've been a university since 1826, and you can see our main building there. We are also ranked very highly in the world. We are number 8th. We are 8th in the world, or 8th equal. We're 4th in Europe and 4th in the UK. We have approximately 43,800 students. We have a wide range of undergraduate programs. You can see there are 440 there. We have the distinction of having amongst our staff presently and historically around 30 Nobel Prize winners. We have over 675 postgraduate programs at UCL, and of course we have an extremely wide and diverse international student body. There are 11 faculties comprising University College London, and the Institute of Education is one of those faculties. You can see behind the faculty names, that's a picture of the IOE library, actually. So the Institute of Education at UCL, well, in the QS World Rankings, we are number 1 in the world for education. We are located right in the center of London, which is we think, one of the world's most dynamic cities. And you can see a number of the landmarks where we are located. So right in the center of the screen, you can see where the Institute of Education is. That's where I am right now, talking to you. And over here, you can see the main building of UCL, which you saw on the first slide. And then you can see some of the main landmarks that we are amongst in London. So you can see that we really are in central London. And as I look out of my window over here, I can just about see the back of the British Museum, just a block away. The IOE is not quite as old as UCL itself, but it has a long history. And this year is our 120th anniversary. We started out as the London Day Training College in 1902, and you can see a picture of our building at that time in the top left there. We had approximately 58 students in 1902. In 1932, we moved to the University of London building, which I can see out of my window at Senate House. And then in 1977, we moved into the building where we are now in Bloomsbury, in Bedford Way. And in 2014, the Institute of Education was we merged with University College London to become UCL's largest faculty. We have a wide range of interests in what we do. We are motivated to develop our interests in social justice, in social diversity, cultural diversity. We are committed to excellence in every way, and we wish to develop an inclusive learning environment and research environment for all those who come to work with us. And on this screen, you can see that we have been ranked #1 in the world for the past 8 years, since 2014. In teacher training, our teacher training programs are ranked as outstanding. We won a Queen's Anniversary Prize in 2015. And in the last research assessment exercise, which was in 2014, we're just waiting for the results of the last one. But in the previous one, we were first in education for research strength. Okay, sorry, my screen seems to have frozen. There we go. The IOE is a diverse community, and we have a wide range of academic specialisms located across 6 departments. And you can see the departments here. I'm myself and Professor Zhu Hua and Professor Fotini Diamantidaki. We're in culture, communication, and media. There's also curriculum, pedagogy and assessment, education, practice and society, learning and leadership, psychology and human development, and the Social Research Institute. We also have a very large Centre for Doctoral Education. In fact, it's the largest centre for doctoral education in the whole of the UK. And located at the IOE, we have over 40 research centres. We primarily orient ourselves to postgraduate programs. We have over 50 master's programs at the IOE, but we do also have undergraduate programs, and we are building our undergraduate profile in education, media, psychology, social science, and sociology. We also have a vibrant and dynamic teacher training program, and various programs can be followed to become a qualified teacher in the UK. And as I've mentioned, we have the largest doctoral school in the UK too. To give you an idea of our student numbers, there's approximately 7,500 students. You can see that the postgraduate students on MA programs are a majority of our students, over 3,000 MA students, and we have approximately 800 PhD or EdD doctoral students, and then just over 2,000 students training to become teachers. And then at undergraduate level, we have just over 1,000 students doing undergraduate programs. Our community is extremely diverse, coming from many parts of the world, as you can see from this pie chart here. We focus on a wide variety of research themes, which you can see on your screen right now. And of course, intercultural communication and applied linguistics, which are the areas that we, Professor Zhu Hua, Professor Fotini, and myself focus on. This is our area of expertise, but you can see that there are many other areas of expertise related to education and society in the work that we do. In fact, in relation to education, we cover every aspect of education that you can think of. The only thing that we do not do at the IOE is sports. That's the only topic area or subject area we don't cover. I think you'll have gathered from what I've already said that we're a very international and outward-looking institution and faculty. We are very concerned to have students who have an international outlook, who are able to locate themselves in what is a dynamic and fast-changing, globalized and interculturalized world. And we have many contacts and relationships and collaborations with different institutions around the world. In Taiwan, for example, we have close relationships with National Taiwan Normal University, NTNU, also with Kaohsiung in the south, Kaohsiung Normal University, the National Institute of Education in Singapore, Seoul National University in South Korea, and the University of Hong Kong in Hong Kong, amongst many others. If you want to find out more about the IOE and what we do, you can go to any of these links and you can find further information, and also watch a video in which our director, Professor Li Wei, will tell you more than I've been able to tell you in the short time that I have. So thank you very much for listening to me. I'm now going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to hand over to Professor Zhu Hua and Professor Fotini Diamantidaki, my colleagues, and they're going to talk to you about intercultural communication. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. That's really exciting introduction. And as John mentioned, intercultural communication and applied linguistics is one of the several key areas offered by IOE. So Fotini and I today will give a quick introduction to the area of intercultural communication. We're going to do double act. I will do most of the talking, and Fotini is going to help out with all sorts of things, interactive activities, and she also, between Fotini and I, we're going to keep an eye on the chat, and there will be some interactive activities, and Fotini is also going to help me with the PPT. So the main content of today's talk, which I hope we can manage within 30 minutes, can be nicely summarized by two questions. What is intercultural communication? And secondly, what are the areas of priorities for ICC scholars? ICC stands for intercultural communication and learners. And how do we deal with the conversation, such as, where are you really from? Okay, so what is intercultural communication? You probably have come across many definitions before. On the slide, I have put down 2 definitions. Can you tell the differences between these definitions? The first one you probably have come across before, and that's very common definition. You will find textbook and in public discourse about what intercultural communication is about. It talks about how people from different cultural, ethnic, and linguistic background come into contact with each other, how they interact with each other. The second one offers a more nuanced understanding of intercultural communication. It positions intercultural communication as a process of negotiation, meaning, relevance of cultural identities, and the differences between ourselves and others. And this second definition is one I use very often in understanding my own research about intercultural communication. And we were hoping to demonstrate in the next 25 minutes why we prefer this second definition over the first one, and how it helps us to understand the differences, similarities when we come across in the cultural context. So we have a mini chat interaction coming up. Fotini is going to explain what it is.
Brilliant, thank you so much. Now everyone, I hope you're all listening and on board, and we have a mini chat interaction to start us with the journey on where are you from. So I would like, and including ourselves, we would write something, an answer to this question, where are you from? So if you use the chat function on the side of your screen, it would be nice to see some of your answers. That will help us think about the 2 definitions on intercultural communication. For some of you, it may be a straightforward answer. For some of you, it may be a bit more complex. So who would like to start us with the chat? I will start as well and say the answer to the question, where are you from? So I'm going to write to everyone where I'm from to start us off. And please feel free to type your answers if you want to. Thank you. Both Taiwan and China mainland. Very interesting. I come from an island which is very close to China. I'm from Hong Kong, an island. Taiwan, brilliant. I come from the Pearl of the Orient Seas, amazing. The Philippines, how beautiful. I'm from Taiwan, Tainan, beautiful. Argentina, very nice. From New Taipei City, north of Taiwan. That's beautiful. I'm from Japan. Brilliant. Thank you all so much. Thank you. And just to summarize very briefly on your answers, I think at the moment, what determines our answers is a relationship with our ethnic background, our national background, maybe where we were born, and where we live. So these are sort of elements, I think, that helps us reflect on the 2 definitions of intercultural communication. So we link it with our ethnic background, and hopefully throughout the next 20-25 minutes, will help you see that the answer sometimes can be a little bit more complex than our initial answers. I hand over to Professor Zhu Hua. Actually, no, this is me again. We want to straight away, yes, okay. Can somebody ask me the question? just to show you how complex an answer might be. Would like somebody to put their hand up or unmute themselves and ask me the questions, Fotini, where are you from? And see what I reply. If you were careful, I actually replied, I am originally from Greece, from my name. But the answer to this question is a little bit more complex. Anyone who would like to ask me the question?
Hi, Fotini, where are you from?
Thank you so much. You're so brave. Well done. I am originally from Greece. I was born in Greece. I've lived in London for 20 years, and my husband is French. So I've lived in France and now living in Switzerland, but also working in the UK.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. And thank you. And think about this complex answer with the slide that is coming as well.
Well, thank you very much, Fotini. So as you see the discussion, it's a very complex situation when we actually answer the simple question, where are you from? I have seen in the chat, some of you use but in the answer as if you are actually talking to people's expectations, and there is certain reference point when we introduce ourselves. It's nice to see the different areas you're coming from and different parts of Taiwan, people actually telling us that you're from, and also different parts of the world. And people, some of you actually put several places together as marker of your identity. So as you see, intercultural communication provides a way of understanding differences. As a little guy, sorry, Fotini, if you go back to yes, as a little guy in a cartoon says, this is actually quite complex journey he's trying to engage with. And sometimes the differences, as you see from the conversation, the guy on the left is looking for a certain answer. And it's actually tell us there is sometimes people ascribe differences upon you because you look different or speak differently. So that's actually bring up the question about language, identity, and culture. So we'll move on to look at other areas ICC has made contributions. Next slide, please, Fotini. So for example, ICC is also very helpful in terms of research to help us to understand the experience, the journey, the trips were made when we actually arrive in a new place. It could actually be how you manage a project, for example. As you see on the slide, there is a W curve on top of slide. It tells you the degree of happiness, satisfaction, people experience at different stages of parts of chapters. So when you start something, you may experience honeymoon period when you're very happy, and there is a time you feel very low, and that's when you see the curve dips. But then you grow, as you see at the bottom of the slide. That's how we grow through the novelty and confirmation, attachment and detachment, this dialogic process. We develop new skills, and we develop the skills to grow, develop ourselves. So this is what ICC research and literature tell us and help us to understand the difference and how we manage differences we see when we interact with each other. Next slide, please. And ICC, one of the nice things about ICC is it is a very much multi and interdisciplinary field. So look at the task above. Can you identify an area that's actually close to your current areas of interest or the area you are interested to study in the future? And Fotini is going to organize a breakout rooms, and there is one question we will invite you to consider.
So if you would like to look at the graph above, so in the middle, you've got ICC and all the different fields that you see around it. We would like you in breakout groups in a second to think about the connections of ICC with those fields, but especially your own fields. So you could have more than one answer. The answer could be multiple and also different areas of expertise coming together. We want to encourage you to discuss, so please feel free to discuss in any language you feel comfortable. So if that's all right with everyone, please feel free also to open your cameras if you want to in your breakout groups. And you're going to have maybe 3 to 4 minutes to discuss this graph. I do invite you while I'm creating the groups. We are 32. Let's do 6 breakout groups. So we have around 5 or so each. And I do encourage you to take a photo of this. So you've got it also in front of you somewhere so that you know what you're discussing about, just in case it disappears in the breakout groups.
So I open the rooms now.
Yes, so I'm assigning this automatically and you're going to find yourselves with people you don't know, but please feel free to discuss in any language you want. Okay, enjoy, and we'll see you again in 4 minutes. Great. Brilliant.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think they all disappeared at least.
Hello. We have a few people who have joined. Maybe they are a bit away from their screen.
Yeah, probably.
But maybe we could discuss a little bit. I don't know if anyone, I don't know if they're away from their screen or.
Yeah. I think there are a couple of people right here.
I think because some of them, for example, if they are teachers, they are still at school, so probably they're still in the office time, so they can't.
I've been engrossed to many types of seminar workshops, and this is very relevant and timely to my work right now, since our school is one of the IB schools, and we focus more on language learning, specifically on international mindedness, and which is intercultural communication is also relevant.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So,
Henry, would you like to talk about your aspect to ICC?
Hi, this is Henry. Nice to meet you all. Okay, so we're going to introduce ourselves, right?
I think so, and we need to discuss further about ICC and how is it connected to our own fields and why.
Okay. So I have no idea now, but can you express what your thoughts now, and I can say it later.
Oh, okay. Should I begin?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
Okay, so basically, yeah, as what I have made mention to Julia, right? To Julia earlier, I'm a foreign English teacher here in Taiwan, and intercultural communication based on the graphic representation earlier focuses on more than 10 aspects. And the one that is closest to me are education and language learning. And I believe that education is really related to intercultural communication, most especially as a foreign English teacher. I am going to teach not just Taiwanese kids, but also there are other international students, since our school is an international school. So it takes a concrete and good grasp of intercultural communication in order for me to fully understand my students' cultures, more so discuss to them that language is also part of our own culture. And that is why we can actually learn more about languages, whatever language it is, because we are able to share our own best practices. And I also understand that it's not just about morphology, phonology, the grammar, the vocabulary, but it's more on how you deliver the message based on your own beliefs and cultures. So yeah, that's the closest thing for me as an educator. So I look forward to hearing from your thoughts as well. Thank you.
Wang Yi, would you like to share your perspective toward ICC?
But I think this one is a little bit difficult for me because I'm an intern teacher now, and I just end my semester today. So actually all of my students are from Taiwan, so it's a little bit difficult for me to talk about ICC. But good point from the boy.
Yeah. Okay. How about Henry? Would you like to share anything else?
I think we have a few seconds left before we go back to the main room.
Oh yeah.
I think something popped up.
Okay. So yeah, maybe we can
pass the graph in our groups. So if you could please type on the chat, yes, we did, or no, yes or no. Yes, if you did, no, if you didn't. So we have a positive answer. Yes, we did. Brilliant. Anybody had issues with non-responded to me? Okay. So we have a kind of a mixed experience there, because some people, couldn't join the group, or so it's good to see that a lot of you did, and some didn't. So what would be useful if someone is brave enough is to share those who actually did. For example, Kennedy or Lo Yang Xiang, sorry if I pronounce it wrong, to maybe share what you discussed with the rest of the group, so that we know a little bit if you're in agreement, for example, how you link ICC and the other fields, and how is it for you? Anyone would like to share a little bit what they discussed? Maybe one person?
I think I can talk about my experience.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I'm currently working as an English teacher here in Taiwan. And I think because Taiwan is going to be a bilingual country, and we are also trying to teach students not just English as a language per se, but also teach English as a communicative tool. So it's kind of like we are trying to teach English as a lingua franca. And judging from my own experience, it also feels like I myself also use English, not only a way to talk to someone, but also talk across culture. And yeah, so it's kind of like we also need to teach students how to talk to foreigners, especially non-native speakers of English, beyond the culture.
That's amazing. And I think it has overlaps with many of the disciplines that we see here on the graph in terms of education, international relations, communication studies, social linguistics as well, pragmatics, language learning. So it's a lot, it's all overlaps beautifully. Thank you so much for your answer. Anyone else would like to share? Otherwise, we'll move on due to time as well. Okay, then maybe let's move on.
Yes, sorry, Fotini, may I explain a little bit about the situation earlier? Yes, I'm sorry. 那刚刚有的同学就是很开心，就是那一组可能讨论比较热烈啊，结果有的同学会发现说，哎，为什么我的组员都没有回答？那因为我们这次的讲座是公开的活动，那有一些参加的可能是现在还在职的人士，那他们有时候在办公室，其实他们听了这个讲座，他们不一定方便参与活动，所以如果刚刚你的朋友没有回应你的话，希望你不要太灰心吼，因为这不是你个人的问题，是因为大家参加讲座的性质不太一样。那我们就继续。So yes, Fotini, you can continue. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. I'll take over from here. Thank you very much. Really interesting discussion. So, but there are questions we need to ask. One of the things I have been always thinking, working and researching intercultural communication is there seems to be a romanticized notion of ICC, particularly when people come into, there is a problems in intercultural communication. I mean, very interesting. We had just an actually interesting example just now. People are not engaged in the discussion and how we understand this problem. Are these intercultural problem or there are different things going on? As Angela has just nicely explained, there might be legitimate reason why people cannot engage in the discussion just now. So what we have seen is actually when people come into contact with each other and there are problems, they are more complicated than just simply there is a misunderstanding or people have a good intention but somehow didn't actually achieve that good intention. So we're going to look at some examples when things are more complicated than just misunderstanding. So next slide, please. For example, penalty for intercultural differences. And this is actually drawing my own research looking at application letters. So when people apply for scholarship, I have asked my students in UK to write mock application letters. And what I found, there are differences in two groups of students. My Chinese students, when they talk about themselves, presenting themselves, they tend to use phrases such as, I'm a graduate in English with excellent academic record. These are fine, and these might well be true, but they sound less convincing without further clarification from the application on the criteria of what they mean by good or excellent. They sound a bit subjective in many ways. Compare with that, people who actually understand the system, who have lived in the UK longer, they tend to provide reference points when they talk about their achievements. So they might actually make a claim that they have achieved distinction across all subjects. Distinction is kind of like the best you can do when you actually assess in the module. And sometimes people offer to provide written references from the module leaders or teachers to demonstrate that what he said is evidence-based. So these are some examples. Sometimes, you can think about this as a language problem, but sometimes it can be regarded as a cultural problems. So where is the line we draw between linguistic and cultural issues in cases like this? The next scenario, if we move on to the next one, is an example I picked up in the London Olympics a while ago. There was a sign in the International Media Center written in simplified Chinese character. The International Media Center is where journalists of all over the world live and they use it as a base. But this sign popped up one day in Chinese asking journalists to seek permission before taking pictures. So this actually triggered lots of public debate. Remember, that was before social media era, but then the debate was triggered anyway. So they were talking about apparent cultural differences. For example, people talking about it's a known fact that photograph taking is a very common practice among the Chinese and some other groups. and the boundaries between private and public areas, lives are very regarded differently cross-culturally. But the question here, the most relevant question here is, who is expected to accommodate whom when there are differences in cultural differences, and who has the authority to make decisions in these matters in a supposedly international space? So the question is, who actually is carry the burden of adaptation and accommodation when there are differences in action, when we come into contact with other people? So the next one, please. So, I mean, of course, we have to talk about pandemic, as we are living with a pandemic. And the pandemic brings attention to the differences in intercultural health behaviors and the serious, sometimes life and death consequences in the intercultural health behavior. So one thing that has transpired in over 2 years of living with a pandemic is health practices can be social, culturally, politically, and historically conditioned. Using the example of wearing face masks, whether you want to, how you persuade other people wearing face masks. Do you wear face mask to protect others, or do you wear face mask to protect yourself? And these are all sorts of arguments put forward, at least in the UK debate about why and when, how to use face masks. And face masks, as people might be familiar, is widely accepted practices in East Asia, but less so in the West, where face masks are very much connected with something that conceal your identities, something that actually people, other people wear, rather than, and then very much actually regarded as a marker of individual decision and freedom. So next slide, please. So the question is, how should we deal with these differences, inequality and bias, as you see it's the pecking order in the intercultural context? There are some examples I want to put through, but very quickly because of time. And one thing we can do as researchers and learners in intercultural communication to use the analytical tools provided by research on discourse, and particularly the analytical notion of nationality and ethnicity talk. This is the one I have developed with my colleague Li Wei in the past few years. So what is discourse? Discourse is depending how you see it, it could be regarded as small d, simply regarded as language in use, is refer to all kinds of texts, including letters, newspaper articles, conversation joke, or you can approach discourse as big D, regarding a ways of being, ways of doing things. So you can have ways of discourse of gender, discourse of being a mother, discourse of being a lecturer, language educator. But this is generally regarding how people enact and recognize socially, historically significant identity or kinds of people. So what is nationality ethnicity talk? Nationality and ethnicity talk, which I refer to as NET, refer to the discourse that invokes or orients to one's ethnicity or nationality, either explicitly or implicitly. So the question, where are you really from? Or some more subtle ones, your English is so good. So there are kind of discourse that includes questions and comments, which are used to establish, ascribe, or challenge, deny, or resist one's identities or ethnicities or nationality. The questions can be subtle, as you see in the example, your English so good, or can be very direct. When are you going back? You may have come across these questions before. I'll be very interested to hear your thoughts later on. So why we need to talk about NET? The next slide, please. Because there is nothing, obviously there's nothing wrong with the question where you're from, as we did in the early exercises. In fact, this kind of a topical talk is very often used as an autobiography talk when we meet somebody for the first time. But the problem occurs when someone who are asking this question appear to look for a certain answer and appear confused or disappointed when hearing a certain answer, and those on the receiving end of these questions may have been asked the same question many, many times. It is challenging, it is really to do with the questions of entitlement and assumption. In the wider literature, we also have connections with some research done from social linguistic area. For example, accent hallucination is the phenomena when people clear to hear accent, when they actually see people's faces, particularly judge, for example, if they see Asian, they claim they can hear Asian accent when they actually see Asian people. In fact, if they actually can't really see over telephone, they probably couldn't tell it's Asian accent. So these kind of phenomena have been researched in social linguistics to understand reflexive relationship between discourse and social relations. So we're going to play a short video. We're not going to play the whole video, but just a few seconds to give you a flavor of how nationality and ethnicity talk in action. This is a conversation between the man and woman, and they're trying to have a conversation. And watch the video and see whether you could spot any NET in action and how the woman respond to the NETs.
Hi there.
Hi.
Nice day, huh?
Yeah, finally, right?
Where are you from? Your English is perfect.
San Diego. We speak English there.
Oh, no. Where are you from?
Well, I was born in Orange County, but I never actually lived there.
I mean before that.
Before I was born.
Yeah, like, well, where are your people from?
Well, my great-grandma was from Seoul.
Korean. I knew it. I was like, she's either Japanese or Korean, but I was leaning more towards Korean.
Amazing.
Hamshasina. There's a really good teriyaki barbecue place near my apartment. So I actually really like kimchi.
Cool.
So if I can
What about you?
here,
Where are you from?
Fotini.
San Francisco.
Thank you very much. So you probably have actually spotted a few NET in actions. I will show you very quickly some of the examples. If you will move on to the next slide. Okay, so these are transcriptions of the conversation in a very broad transcription. As the fonts, the sentences in blue are the kind of NET the man has introduced. So for example, the way he asked the question, where are you from? You know, slowing down every single syllable and then commented on English. And also the question, where are your people from? These examples are NET. But the woman also responded very interesting resisted these NETs. We won't be able to go through how the woman responded to that, unfortunately, because of time. But let's move on to the question. So why these kind of conversation matters? So Fotini, if you move on to the next slide. Yes. So this is earlier we talked about, you know, this is actually reflective relationship between race and social relations, and the language play a key role. So these actually the reasons why we actually need to talk about these differences, because race is not something that people have or are, but rather a set of actions that people do. And people do race through language. And NET, as you have had probably very briefly, in the nationality and ethnicity talk, we see not only the mechanism of construction of social relationship, but also act of a symbolic power play, where people subjectively position and calibrate us versus others by questioning their entitlement, authenticity, and legitimacy. All these are central notions to language, identity, and culture. So next slide, we're finishing quickly. So in short, as you see, ICC has come from a long way from the early concerns with national security or corporate sponsorship, international marketing practice in its early days. It's now a much more scholarly field of research that subsumes many other well-established disciplines. Its research agendas has broadened up from a focus on achieving understanding to a more historically situated and politically sensitive examinations of perceived and constructed similarities and differences. So finally, Fotini has interactive activities for you. I don't know whether we want to do it because of time or not. I'll leave it to you, Fotini.
Sure. I mean, these are, I think, the answers to the question of where you're really from, based on everything we experienced so far, and the thinking that went through from the first definition to this one, to the video, to the conclusion, helped us to reflect that the answer might be a little bit more complex than we thought. So we'll leave it up to people who wish to answer in the chat, while we'll take questions more generally, because I think the answer to this requires a little bit more thought, and see how they would have evolved from their first answer. So feel free, and if I see any answers in the chat while we're answering any questions you may have, then I will comment on those. Thank you. I will stop sharing, I think, as well. Okay. So I think now, isn't it the moment where we take any questions you might have about absolutely anything, not only about the presentation, in general about IOE, anything you want to ask, we're here to reply to any of your questions.
I have a question though. So yeah, so how exactly could we ask, say, an Asian American where they really come from? Because it's really an issue for me, because like I'm working with some foreign English teachers, and I'm like, sometimes I'm just so curious about where they originate from. So is there a polite way or a more appropriate way to get to know them better?
Yes, Professor, yes.
Well, interesting reflection there. I think it's nothing wrong with the question of where are you from or where are you really from. It's the way the questioner, particularly the way questioner are seeking, expecting certain kind of answers. Like what Fotini did earlier, she, depending how long you got, she gave us a wonderful example of how she answered the questions, where are you from or where are you really from? And in the video clip, which we didn't have much time to discuss, the woman actually reversed the table, turned the table when after she was fed up with the men's quiz about where she's from. And she turned the table by asking, where are you really from? So that kind of conversation is subtle resistance, but works well.
Absolutely, and I would concur everything you said, Professor Zhu Hua, and saying that there's nothing wrong with asking the question, where are you from? Over the years, what I have encountered is the expectations of people of what they want me to say of where I'm from, because obviously they see that I have an accent. They try to guess, for example, maybe from Spain, from Italy. Oh, you've got an accent, but actually I don't know where exactly from. And I don't have the Greek accent because I speak so many languages. It's dissipated. So I don't know what kind of accent I have. And the answer is, I don't know where I'm really from. So I think it's about appreciating, because over the journey from being born in a certain country to where I am now, and navigating through life, for example, there are so many experiences that you keep them as your own. They are you. And so I had a really good answer from my children who are trilingual, and they speak, and they are also 3 nationalities. And I say, how do you identify yourself? Where would you say you're from? You lived in 3 different countries already and you're only 10. And they say, actually, mommy, it's just me. It's me. And whatever makes up me, and they're happy about their identity, and then the rest, all the kind of ethnicity and national expectations we have from that answer, actually they're confident to face that.
Okay, thank you.
I'd also add there, Yang Tiang, that if you're working in a team, like a multicultural team, and you just want to learn more about your colleagues, the people you're working with, I mean, a good way to start is just to tell them about yourself, and say, oh hi, here we are, here's what we're doing. I just want to tell you something about myself and how I came to be here, and then you can kind of get into where they're from, and they'll see that you've complexified it, so they won't feel like you're, let's say, making them say where they're from. I always find it problematic when people ask me where I'm from, because I was born in Hong Kong and I've lived here in the UK for many years, but I lived in Hong Kong for many years as well. But my family are not from England, but everybody assumes I'm English. Everybody. So it's a bit of a, I understand that feeling.
Thank you.
Kennedy, yes, thank you for your question.
Yeah, I would like to also add into that. I genuinely believe that everything boils down into the one who asks the question, if he or she is asking it in good faith. Basically, he or she is actually curious about your friend or your colleague's culture, and not just asking it because of he or she might have any prejudices on that person's appearance. So I think that depends also on how we interpret things. But overall, it's also good that we try to interact with other people, most especially if they are the ones we are working with as a team. So yeah.
Thank you so much for your reflection. And I think it's always this question of, you show that you care where people are from, and you show that you care about their journey to get to you. And I think that's always what really matters, getting to know people rather than ethnicities, nationalities, but people. Any other questions beyond our presentation? If you have any questions on the university, anything that comes to mind you want to ask us, we're very happy to answer.
那不晓得就是参与的大家有没有什么关于刚刚讲座也可以，或者是就是 IOE 教育学院也可以。那其实现在 IOE 它也不是只有教育相关的科系，它也有很多其他跟社会科学相关的科系。那又或者是你们对于刚刚的题目或内容，或是教授本身的就是教的科目，你也有兴趣也可以做提问。Oh, I think there's a question in the chat box. And then
Yeah, I can answer that. Yes, there are scholarships for international students at UCL. Every year there is a call for graduate research scholarships. I won't deny that they are highly competitive, but yes, you can apply for a scholarship. And the IOE also has some scholarship opportunities, but the main one I think would be the UCL Graduate Research Scholarship would be the main one. But you can, if you go to the UCL website and just type in scholarships, it will all come up there. Thank you, Esther. Yeah, Esther's just put it in the chat. There's the link, and you can find everything you need to know there. No problem.
那因为教授他们今天其实他们是一大早起来，然后帮我们就让台湾的不管是老师也好，或者是学生也好，今天有这个机会参与就是这样子大师课的课程。那我们因为也不想耽误太多教授的时间，如果大家最后还有一些问题想要直接问教授的话，我们在进入下一个阶段之前，有没有人现在还需要来做询问的？ 目前没有吗? Okay, so I think so far for the first section that most of them have no questions, and I will stay here if they have further more about the application or the University of Seoul. But before we move on, I want to thank the 3 professors, including John O Regan and Zhu Hua and Fotini, for supporting the event today, because I know you have really tight schedule, and it's really our honor for having you join the event today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Angela.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Really nice to be here. Thank you all for having us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.